Just when the Cardinals got to that 500 record, Hunter Brown and the Astros were there to knock the Redbirds back down a peg. We break it down, plus give you the details on how the Cardinals are going to begin the six-man rotation era on Wednesday. All coming up on B-Schaeff Daily. And longtime listeners of the program know what that noise means. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this edition of B-Schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer with you. It is Tuesday evening, April 15th, 2025. I got a request recently to bring the music back, and I decided to bring the music back. Let me know in the comments below what you think. You like it better with or without. I always thought it was maybe a little bit intimidating for new listeners that I'm trying to attract that don't know that we've been doing this podcast for basically 5 years now and on YouTube for the last couple of baseball seasons. But I figured, you know what? It makes me happy. So if it makes you happy, I hope people are pro music. But if you're not, I can get rid of it all over again. But what's going on, folks? Cardinals lose tonight 2-0 to the Houston Astros. Hunter Brown on top of it against the Redbirds with the way that St. Louis had been performing offensively against some of the top arms in baseball. They put 5 runs up on Paul Skeens last Wednesday, and since then, a win over Aaron Nola, a win and a good performance over Zach Wheeler, a win and a good performance over Framber Valdez. Tonight, different story. Hunter Brown got the better of the St. Louis lineup. It was bound to happen eventually, but my opinion and takeaway from this game, other than dun, 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 let's go Blues, as I know most people probably just diverted their attention to the Blues clinching a playoff berth in their win over the Utah Hockey Club on Tuesday night. Other than that, which is honestly not related at all to the Cardinal game, Erick Fedde pitching really well again, continuing to pass the baton as this Cardinal rotation keeps things rolling. Kyle Leahy looked pretty good out of the bullpen. Yordan Alvarez happened to him. I just got this sense coming into the series that you were going to see a moment from Yordan Alvarez. You hoped, against all hope, that the Cardinals would be able to delay his breakout in the 2025 season beyond this Wednesday. Like, just get through the early portion of the week and Yordan can go on wherever else the Astros are going and can start to be himself again. Yeah, he maybe started that a game or two a little earlier than you wanted to see. But Kyle Leahy had a hilarious strikeout of Jose Altuve on a back foot changeup, basically, that Altuve had his front foot in the air, came down, and then pivoted again, was basically on roller skates with what Kyle Leahy was doing to him. So a couple of relief innings from Leahy. He does give up 1 run on that Yordan Alvarez bomb. And you saw Roderick Munoz come in and finish the game off. The pitching is still the storyline for the Cardinals that's keeping them in things. We'll see if they're able to keep it going now that the dawn of the six-man rotation era is upon us in St. Louis. Wednesday, you'll get Steven Matz, the starter. And I'm reading this off the Blue Sky account from Jeff Jones of the Belleville News-Democrat. I wasn't down at Busch Stadium tonight, but he mentions that Roderick Munoz's bag was open in front of his locker after the game, pitched each of the last 2 nights, and he mentions that the Cardinals will need some length behind Steven Matz on Wednesday. Adds that Matz will be on a 60-pitch cap. So the Cardinals worked him up, I believe, to around 45 pitches in his last relief appearance to line him up for Wednesday. The word from Oliver Marmol, per Jeff Jones' reporting, is 60 for Matz on Wednesday. I would think Gordon Graceffo is a solution to that problem. Last pitched on the 12th of April, according to Jeff, and threw 70 pitches in that one. So kind of probably what you expect is Graceffo up for Munoz, if I had to guess, and then Graceffo piggybacking behind Matz. Matz gets you through 4, ideally, on those 60 pitches. If he can go deeper, that's great. But he gets you through 4. Graceffo covers the other 3, and then you've got your bridge to the late innings, assuming the Cardinals are in the game still. It'll be a good opportunity for Graceffo if he ends up being the guy that we end up seeing, because we saw Gordon as the 27th man during the doubleheader on Sunday in Boston. He got batted around a little bit behind Miles Michaelis in that game. That was the 18-7 loss. I don't think that's indicative of the kind of pitcher that Graceffo can be for the 2025 Cardinals. It was a tough spot, and he had to sort of eat it against a good lineup that was really feeling itself that night, and a little chilly, emergency duty, like all of the factors that made it a tough spot for Graceffo. We'll see if he comes out. Jeff also had mentioned, I'm just kind of reading through his Blue Sky at this point, that McGreevy has not pitched since April the 10th, so he would be on turn to join the fray if the Cardinals wanted to go that route. I prefer to see McGreevy remain in a starting role, but it could conceivably be a decent way for them to get, him some big league experience. He could hop on the plane or the bus or whatever it is, get to St. Louis and pitch 4 innings ostensibly behind Steven Matz if they wanted to go that route. I wouldn't be totally opposed to it, honestly. I think McGreevy more deserving of the chance just based on the spring that he had, and Graceffo has already gotten a look at the big leagues. I think McGreevy probably the better arm at this point in time, so maybe he gives you a better chance to win. We'll see what the Cardinals go with, but I mean, imagine a world in which it's McGreevy behind Steven Matz and they just can cover the 9 innings so that as you jump into this new realm of a 6-man rotation, you're able to get a couple of off days in a row for the rest of your bullpen because they don't play on Thursday with the off day before traveling to New York. And then, yeah, it would be a mercenary trip for McGreevy. No matter how he performed, he would go right back down to Memphis, I would think. And then you could, bring up the fresh arm in Graceffo, who would be another day along, and he would be totally rested and ready to go, have him come to New York. I guess you could do it in either which fashion. But Cardinals fans, let me know what you think. Seems like, though, the reporting from Busch Stadium with Roddery Munoz having used up a little bit of his availability the last 2 days, the Cardinals could be looking to make a move. And the reason we talk so much about the bullpen minutia is because I think it is a big part of how this 6-man rotation concept is either going to sink or swim. It sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but it's more about, can the bullpen afford the Cardinals the luxury of having a 6-man rotation? Can those 7 that remain do their jobs? Now, it may be a rotating 7. It may be that 7th spot is a perpetual long man, and you're just cycling through guys who happen to have roster eligibility. They're on the 40-man, and so you're able to play around with it a little bit. That feels like you'd be playing fast and loose with the development of some of these players, especially in a world where, maybe we need to go with a quick down on the farm to basically just describe the carnage that is going on with the minor league pitching depth. Cooper Jerpy with the Tommy John surgery is the new news from this week. Quinn Matthews is on the injured list. We interviewed a man by the name of Will Carroll. We talk to him every week. The injury expert talks a lot about baseball injuries, who mentioned maybe being a shoulder thing for Quinn Matthews. I hadn't heard that elsewhere and haven't done a lot of digging to this point today to figure out what exactly is going on with Quinn Matthews. Maybe it is that it was reported by Ollie Marmol or somebody to Cardinals reporters at Busch, and I just missed it, having not been there this afternoon doing the show for KTGR. But he's on the shelf. Quinn Matthews, Tink Hence is on the shelf as well for 60 days at least with the rib cage strain that he's been dealing with. So that pitching depth in terms of the guys you thought would be up-and-comers is kind of tapped out already, and it's been the major league pitching depth that's been able to keep healthy for the time being. So, and like we think about guys like Zach Thompson, who gets lost in the shuffle of this, has been on the 60-day injured list at the big league level too. So it's just been one of those deals where the Cardinals don't have a ton of healthy options that are just bursting at the seams to come up in terms of starting pitching depth. And so when you're in the month of April and you're making the decision to go to a 6-man rotation, you make sure the bullpen can cover the innings that get left behind, which is going to be imperative at the very beginning of this with Matz on a pitch count. But you also have to make sure that the guys in that 6-man rotation do stay healthy. And hopefully the fact that they're going only every 6 days is, preferable to going every 5th day, where your arm gets a little bit more worn out over the course of the weeks and the months and the season. We'll see if this ends up being a strategy that pays dividends in the long run for the Cardinals. But let me know your thoughts on it, Cards fans, as we get a look at Steven Matz on Wednesday afternoon at Busch Stadium. I mentioned I am going to go to that game as a spectator and take my 2-year-old son, go along with my wife. Excited to be able to do that, introduce him to some Cardinal baseball this year. He went to a couple of games last year, but he was one. How much of that is he really going to be able to remember? He's going now, and I think it's going to be an interesting Cardinal team to give my kid a look at, because as much as you didn't get the job done tonight for the Cardinal offense, there is a lot to like about this offense. They're still ranked. I checked it out earlier tonight. The numbers may have changed for the Chicago Cubs, but the Cardinals with a season-long OPS of 786, which at the time was tied for 3rd in MLB with the Cubs. So you're talking about an offense that is producing at a much more consistent rate. Now, it happens tonight where Hunter Brown just got the better of you. I think by the time it's all said and done, Hunter Brown's going to be one of those guys, and I feel like as I'm talking about him, I'm going to kick myself because I don't think I ended up keeping him on any of my fantasy teams. I make so many trades with the handful of fantasy leagues that I'm in, and I think he was one of those that was a casualty of me trying to make some bigger moves. Nobody cares about this remotely, but I'm kind of regretting it because he is a guy that I think is going to end up panning out for Houston. They've got some issues offensively, and the Astros, to get to the same 8-9 record that the Cardinals are at, are going to be thanking their stars that they were able to do it with just 2 runs. It's kind of the way that they have to win right now with the way that the offense has been a little bit sluggish for Houston to begin the season. But Hunter Brown looks like a breakout candidate and a bona fide stud for them. He's got a 1.50 ERA now, and now up to 22 strikeouts after his first 4 appearances of the season. Cardinals only struck out 4 times against him, walked a couple of times, and scratched across 4 hits, but they just weren't ever able tonight to really get that big hit to get the line moving and keep it moving like they were able to do on Monday night at Busch Stadium against Framber Valdez. It seemed in that game like the early innings they were going to leave some opportunities by the wayside and not be able to fully cash in, and then they really started to get it going in the middle innings. Innings number 4, you had the Pajes double on Monday that really kind of set the tone for the rest of that night. Cardinals ended up scoring 8 runs, and they chased Framber Valdez, getting, I believe, 7 of the 8 off of him, with 6 coming earned. In the game on Tuesday, it was a different story. 1 for 7 as a team with runners in scoring position tells the tale in part, but you just didn't have anybody that was truly going up there and establishing the tone. Nobody with a multi-hit game tonight for the Cardinals. You had 6 hits as a team, and they came from 6 different culprits. Ciani, Burleson, Arenado, Donovan, Nootbaar, and then off the bench, Luke and Baker, subbing in for Burleson when the pitching change was made later on in the game to a lefty. Baker got an opportunity there, and he ends up going 1 for 2. His OPS sitting at 717. Up and down the lineup, the Cardinals have a number of guys still performing very well. Arenado and Donovan both had hits tonight, and their OPSs remain above 900. Nootbaar in the battle for my soul. No, that's not what I meant to say. In the battle for my bold prediction, Lars Nootbaar drew a walk early in the game, but then he struck out. So that bout between will he walk more times this year than he strikes out at the plate, which was, of course, my bold prediction for the St. Louis Cardinals season. I think he's currently doing it like 13-12 or something, but we'll see if that ends up being something he can sustain. He was the only Cardinal on base 2 times tonight. His OPS sitting at 832. Contreras was back in the 2-hole. I'm just going to say, not my preference, but I understand why it happens. You want to fit a right-handed batter in that spot. And with Burleson in the lineup at the DH, it wasn't going to be Luke and Baker. Jordan Walker kind of going through it a little bit to where maybe not wanting to rush him back up into the 2-hole. And Arenado's going to stay put at cleanup. So there's really no other candidates of the right-handers tonight other than Contreras. I would do it. I would go left at the top. I would bump Contreras down to 3, come what may. Oliver Marmol is infinitely more qualified than me to be making these decisions, but I just feel like that lineup has a flow to it that I can appreciate when Wilson is batting a little bit lower in the order. And at this point, it's almost one of those deals like, I very much don't believe that the batting order position makes a difference in a player's performance. Like, they moved him down to number 5 the other day and he had a big game. Coincidence. I really do not think it's one of those things that I'm going to buy into and put stock into. But then the other side of my mouth, I say, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If he's doing better in those spots, number 3, number 5, whatever the case may be, I like seeing him there. But I understand Brendan Donovan has been a revelation in the 3-hole. He's still hitting 382 with a 970 OPS. So, like I said, it's one of those things that I just think I have no rhyme or reason to it other than I like the way it looks with Contreras a little bit lower, but they like the way it looks with going left, right. We'll talk about it all year long. I'm not ever going to stop talking about the little minutia with the lineup, but I don't think it's too serious at this point. You got a Cardinal offense that's still one of the top 5 in baseball with basically every statistical category. And again, Wilson Contreras batting 154 with a 449 OPS. If you think that's what he's going to do all year long, I would say differently. I would say give me the over on that situation. So I feel like Wilson is feeling a little better at the plate. And tonight, there was really nobody that was having a great deal of success against Hunter Brown in this game. So let's see here. We talked about Kyle Leahy, the strikeout on a changeup to Altuve. Will be interesting to see how Leahy continues to acquit himself within the confines of that bullpen conversation. He's a guy that can go multiples. He went 2 tonight, and it's always going to be the case that when you're down, even if it's only by 1 run, you've got your crop of relievers that all of our Marmol is going to use. He's not going to go to Helsley. He's not going to go to Maton. He's not going to go to JoJo. And more often than not, he's not going to go to Fernandez unless you're tied. Maybe then you go to Fernandez. That's half your bullpen, and soon to be, what's the percentage on that? 63% of your bullpen? What's 4 divided by 7? Quick math check. No, 57%. I could delete that and nobody would ever know that I did a math wrong, but I'm going to leave it in there, and that's called accountability. Hashtag accountability. I'm usually pretty good at those in my head, but next time somebody tests me, I'll come through. This time, I didn't come through, and it doesn't make me a bad math magician. It just means that I didn't come through this time, in the same way that it doesn't make the Cardinals a bad offense because they didn't come through against Hunter Brown on one day. They beat a bunch of ace-caliber pitchers earlier in the week, and they're a better offense than they showed to be tonight. See? Parallels. We like to make those connections. But as I was mentioning with Kyle Leahy, it's just, and I've talked about this before, it always strikes me, thinking back to how I viewed him in 2023 when he came up and the Cardinals were just trying anybody out of that bullpen to try to get them some innings and get through the rest of that summer. And just seemed like he was more, organizational depth at the most. The revelation that he has been in the couple of years since, and in particular this year, like he did a nice job for him last year to where coming into spring, I think his bullpen spot was a lot safer than everybody else in that conversation, guys that had options. He was kind of an incumbent that they really felt filled the role pretty well. He's that right-handed middle relief option that can go multiple. The Cardinals came into Grapefruit League, and we kind of made a little bit of a thing of it and said, oh, he's coming in as a starter, as a guy that they're stretching out. But it was basically just a way to make sure he could get loosened out and stretched out to be a guy that goes multiples, that can go 2 innings, can go 3 innings, and come into the season ready to do that for this team. And so he's done it, and tonight was another example of him doing it. And I know he gave up a home run to Yordan Alvarez. I'm kind of glossing over that because it just doesn't bug me that much. I figured Yordan was going to get somebody in this series, and it happened to be Leahy. But he looked good, and he looked sharp, like he's got stuff. The changeup to Altuve really did blow me away, and I think the pitching ninja should be all over that on Twitter. I don't know if he made mention of it at all tonight, but it was that kind of pitch, and it drew that kind of reaction from a really good hitter. As much as Cardinals fans and fans from all teams that aren't the Astros will boo Jose Altuve every time he comes up to the plate these days, ever since he wore that buzzer, which, by the way, don't anybody go tell my co-host Andy on the Big Show in Columbia that I said this, but I don't actually believe Jose Altuve wore a buzzer. You cannot tell Andy, because it's one of my favorite bits that we do on the Big Show, where every time the topic comes up, I can get him riled up because he's a big Astros fan. I can just start talking about buzzers, and he's like, he blows his top like he's the tea kettle in Beauty and the Beast or something. And it's like his one trigger, I can get him. It's like Manchurian Candidate. So I'm hoping that nobody spills my secret that I don't actually think Altuve did that. But it's funny that he's associated with the trash can banging, when I guess the folks who did the deep dive on that did not ever find that Altuve was one of the ones participatory with the trash cans. I could be misremembering that. It's been a number of years. People in the comments that are more tuned in with the scandal will probably correct me and tell me I'm wrong. But it's just funny that he ends up being the face of it because of a completely different thing, which is the notion that against Aroldis Chapman, he hit that home run in the ALCS and didn't want his teammates to take his shirt off, like to Nick Punto his jersey and shred it. He didn't want them to do that, and it came to be, I don't know if that was a John Boy or what ended up being the reason that all started, but that he was wearing a wire. He's wearing a buzzer underneath to tell him what pitches were coming was the implication there. So anyway, I know I'm getting off on a tangent. My point is Jose Altuve, really good hitter. Kyle Leahy made him look silly. Does Leahy end up evolving into one of those guys that gets more of those kind of leveragey opportunities, 7th inning, 8th inning, where you had maybe thought Chris Roycroft had a leg up on that to begin the season, and guess what? He's not here right now. I think what's tough about it is Leahy fills such an important role, and it's a role that's only going to grow more important as you get into the six-man rotation, because you got to have those guys that are going to be able to give you multiples to cover for when a starter doesn't go deep. Knock on wood, right now the Cardinals aren't having to consider very much of a world where their starter doesn't go deep. But again, it's going to happen on Wednesday by design because they're not going to rush Steven Matz along. I think it's an understated part of this whole thing in the success we're seeing right now from the rotation. And this may not be popular because I'm about to give credit to Oliver Marmol. Everybody take a breath. I think the way that him and his coaching staff are handling these pitchers, guys with pitch counts in April, weather's not as warm, you've got a long-range viewpoint of how you want this summer to go. The Cardinals, at least at the big league level, are one of the few teams who right now they're able to say the starting pitching depth and the rotation has held serve. It's held up from a health perspective. There are teams, the Dodgers have multiple starters on the injured list. A lot of teams do. And yes, I understand the irony because I'm talking about the great health right now of the Cardinal pitching staff, and their minor league prospects are, the new one seems to be going down every single day to injury, but that's not quite related to what the big league staff is doing to manage its rotation. So I understand these two things are happening parallel to one another, but I want to focus on what the big league staff is doing, because that first couple of weeks of the season, doing this post-game show on B-Schaeff Daily, doing the Sports Hub STL shows, folks that would call in to KTGR on the big show, we're talking Cardinals, it was difficult for me not to kind of shake you guys a little bit sometimes. Not everybody, but it seemed like the most popular and fun thing to do at the time was to criticize one aspect, if not more, per night of Marmol's pitching handling. Whether it was you took Sonny Gray out too early and it's freezing cold and Sonny probably said, hey, I'm good, I'm ready to be done. Whether you took Erick Fedde out too early when he had the no-hitter. Like, stuff like that didn't even really cross my mind. Or, brought in the wrong reliever. The bullpen was kind of coughing things up. You had those extra inning games against the Angels. And I was like, folks, it is a long season, and there have been a few spots early that they lose close games. And so when you lose a close game as a baseball team in 2025, everybody's got access to all of the data and the numbers, and fans, to their credit, can look at some of these things in ways that maybe you weren't able to in the past. Us out in the public sphere can second guess because we can see a lot of, or we think we can see a lot of what they should be looking at to make these decisions. There's always going to be more data that we don't access. And especially in that first couple of weeks of the season, I think we didn't maybe appreciate enough the extent to which it should just be keep these guys healthy and try to get through April unscathed. If the Cardinals can leave April with a 500 record and a healthy rotation, I think they will have done something right. And that's not to say that I'm settling for mediocrity or that I think 500 is good enough. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think the teams that are sprinting out of the gates, but then find that their pitchers don't hold up, it doesn't matter how you start out of the gates. If your starting pitching doesn't hold up, you're going to be feeling it later on in the summer. And right now, the depth is not what we thought it was going to be, guys. We thought the Cardinals were going to have really solid starting depth to where the likes of Quinn Matthews and Cooper Jerpy and Tink Hence and Tekoa Roby. Roby's really the only one. Put that guy in bubble wrap, find a way to keep him healthy because he might need to be in the Memphis rotation sooner than later. All the other guys that I mentioned have then gone on the injured list. Like, now Ian Bedell, let's see what you've got at the AAA level because you may be called upon. Gordon Graceffo, he's healthy, but we did get a glimpse of him, and it didn't go that great. And obviously McGreevy is still first in line if they really needed a long-term starting answer. It's just one of those things where I think I want to credit the Cardinals for the way that they're approaching this sensibly to try to get through April. Have a long-range view of the situation, I think is something that the Cardinals are doing that we're maybe not appreciating enough in the moment, where we keep seeing guys go, well, 77 pitches, why didn't you take him out? 82, what's going on there? All right, now you're getting deeper into April. You're starting to move toward that six-man rotation where the guys who are built up, everybody but Matz basically, I think you're going to see a little bit more of a gradual increase in what the staff is going to allow for them to do because you know that the coverage is not going to be quite as strong in the bullpen. You're deleting one of the relievers from that group and adding him to the rotation, which is another day that those guys have to cover. So I think whereas they in the first 3 weeks handled this rotation in one capacity, Now you're watching fourth time through. Sonny Gray, they let him go up to 92 pitches, and I'm telling you, I wonder if there was a half a mind to have him go out there for the eighth inning as well, just because of how long on Monday they took to let Ryan Fernandez warm up. I don't think it was until after the lengthy at-bat and then an Arenado home run in the bottom of the seventh that sort of expedited, okay, we are definitely going to the bullpen. Now, maybe they were just waiting for the first out of the inning to happen in the bottom of the seventh so that Fernandez could time it up and be ready for the eighth. But nevertheless, I thought it was kind of notable that Sonny strong through 92 pitches. We talked about that last night and gave you the audio too, so make sure to check that out on yesterday's episode of the podcast if you missed it. But I just think that's all very interesting, and it's a topic that doesn't get a lot of play because it's more nuanced, and it's not hot takey enough to say, actually, the Cardinals handling these starters well in the early going is going to pay dividends in the long run, in theory. Whereas I think the way to look at it from the outside perspective, the temptation generally is going to be, okay, the Cardinals lost in extra innings, and they went to a reliever that they otherwise wouldn't have had to have used if they could have got their starter through one more inning, and like to reverse engineer and say, this is what went wrong. That was getting a little bit excruciating in the early days, and I'm sure it was for the Cardinal management team as well, because it's like, we can only go by our process, and we can only do what we are seeing as the best course of action for the long run in the short run. And like, you don't get to necessarily go back and manage those games in retrospect and delete a decision here, add something there, simulate the outcome and see if it got any better. Like, we have to respect, I think, the degree to which it's difficult to make these decisions in real time. And I was in a tight spot because I'm like, man, I'm really going to get that homer label if this doesn't turn around soon, because I didn't have a single problem with really any of those pitching decisions in the first couple of weeks. And I was kind of seeing it through the lens of what the Cardinals were doing there. Now we're going to get to see if it ends up panning out for them. Like, can they keep this group healthy for the rest of April? Can they continue to get the production they're getting from this unit right now? Because when you look at what guys like Erick Fedde now, over his last 12 innings, 2 starts, he's given up just 1 run. And you can go through the entire rotation, and the ERA, I believe, over the past week and a half, whatever the cutoff point is, probably starting the game after the Miles Michaelis start, whatever that would have been. So you're talking 6-7 starts ago. Off the top of my head, I don't remember. The ERA for starting pitching is in the 1s, really, at that point. So, and probably more than 6 or 7, because the Michaelis start on Saturday was still a number of days ago. So you're probably talking 8 total starts, maybe 9, where the Cardinals have had an ERA down below 2 from their starting rotation. And I think they're kind of starting to get the bullpen dialed in as well. The bullpen should be relatively rested at this point, because yesterday you get the 7 innings from Sonny, today the 6 from Fedde. Like, that's the way it's supposed to look. And if the Cardinals can be even a top 10, top 12 offense, they don't have to be the top 3 offense they've been. I think you just need to make sure that steady drumbeat of consistency on the pitching side happens. And then you probably end up lining into a team that can be around 500, maybe a little bit better. That's not, the moon and stars for a lot of Cardinal fans, but I think when you look at the expectations coming in, if you buy into win totals and in Vegas projections and things like that, this was a team that many thought was going to be below 500. So still sitting here at 8-9, you'd like to get that win on Wednesday and really usher Matz into the rotation in a positive way. But either way, like, they're still in a position right now where I think you take it. They're surviving the early portion as they're trying to get this thing rolling. And they've also had some injuries on the offensive side, with Mason Wynn going down, with Ivan Herrera going down as well. And, of course, you missed Nolan Gorman there for a little while. And he's got an OPS still around 1,000 too. So they're good things to be able to discuss right now. There's obviously still a lot yet to see play out for this Cardinals team, and you are kind of holding your breath when it comes to that pitching depth, and you're hoping that the Quinn Matthews situation is not one that lingers. But again, I think we're going to find out in the coming days, and it could certainly be a case where you're going to be without him for a while, and finding the stockpile of pitching from basically thin air is going to be a challenge. So you're hoping that the guys at the big league level can certainly stay healthy. When we get out of here, let me try that again. Before we get out of here, I want to make a mention of something that happened on Monday. It's a Cardinals-ish topic because we're talking about a former Cardinal, Paul Goldschmidt. This was hysterical that I only saw this earlier today. Paul Goldschmidt game against the Kansas City Royals, I believe on Monday night, has a double in checking here, looks like the 8th inning. And he's on second base. He's taken off the gear. In the dugout, Aaron Judge and one other Yankee are kind of holding up the one finger, trying to get his attention, trying to do whatever it is that the Yankees celebration is, right? When the guys get a double. We've seen the Cardinals do the Flappy Bird for the extra base hits. That's been kind of a cool thing. I even saw on TV some fans start to get into the act tonight. But Paul Goldschmidt, we know, maybe not the most participatory when it comes to these kind of in-game celebrations for, a double. It's not like he homered, he doubled. The dugout was waiting to see Goldschmidt go hit one of these sellies, and he never even looked in their direction. I just want to play a little bit of the audio from the Yes broadcast, the Yankees TV broadcast from Monday as this was going on. It's an audio medium here, so I don't have the video for you, but I tweeted about it on Tuesday afternoon and basically just said they'll learn. They're going to have to learn. But I'll give you a quick audio clip of what was going on there when Aaron Judge was going, Goldy, hey, I'm here, buddy.
No, that's an important hit. They want the ball, or are you disappointed? What do we got here?
Goldschmidt's not a celebratory guy. He's not going to do a little dance. He's old school.
That's Paul Goldschmidt. He's old school, and you know what? I think Cardinals fans understand the reasoning behind him ending up with the Yankees, but I also think when we saw him go to the Yankees, everybody had the same reaction. Oh, he's going to be really good. And looks like coming in to play on Tuesday, he's got a 500 slug, he's got a 367 average, and a 409 on base. He's got a 909 OPS, and good to see Paul Goldschmidt off to a really strong start to the season for the Yankees. But no, Aaron Judge, he's not going to do the celebration with you. That's just the way it is. They'll learn. They'll figure it out as time goes on. I hope you guys as Cardinals fans figure out as time goes on that B-Schaeff Daily is going to be here pretty much every day covering the Cardinals all summer long. So if you're into that and you haven't yet jumped on board, join us here same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. I try to get all these episodes out for everybody's morning commute the next day. I won't always be able to do it, but really do try, and we're going to try to have a lot of good content for you. Basically breaking down the ins and outs of this Cardinals team all year long. So if you're new to the show, appreciate you for jumping on board. If you're a longtime listener, check out the video description below for the link to the channel membership if you'd like to sign up for that on YouTube. The second tier, the higher tier in that membership, also has a Discord component. The free link to Discord is below, but if you join that second tier of membership on YouTube, you do get into the private lounge Discord chat on that platform. So just hit me up at B-Schaeffer12 on Twitter with any questions about that. Appreciate all the support. Really does help me be able to do the work that I am doing and prioritizing this podcast all summer long. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on B-Schaeff Daily. Peace.